A few folks around. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back. I believe we have everyone back now. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I'm Angela Gardner, and so happy that you're all here this morning. We're really excited about our special guest speaker today. And I'm going to provide a brief bio for your hearing so we can all get to know this wonderful individual a little better. Super excited about this topic. Want you to also know super quick before I read this bio that we're going to structure our conversation as an interview. So we invite you all to add your questions or comments into the chat. Light up the chat and we'll be monitoring it as well. You know, we're all great multitaskers in workforce. Lazandra Dial is a consultant, executive coach, speaker, and author with 20 plus years experience working in government and supporting the nonprofit industry. She is recognized and known for her expertise in helping organizations secure government funding, strategic planning, and organizational development. She is the former executive director of the City of Oakland Workforce Development Board. She began her career in workforce development in 2011 as a program financial analyst for the Alameda County Workforce Development Board, where she oversaw career center services. Lazandra worked for the state of California for 10 years before returning to her beloved city, Oakland. In her last position with the state, she implemented the New Start Prison to Employment program at Folsom State Prison in her role as the community resource manager. She was the Senior Criminal Justice Specialist for the Governor's Office of Criminal Justice Planning, Office of Emergency Services, where she provided oversight for the statewide Domestic Violence Assistance Program and the Domestic Violence Response Team. She was the Domestic Violence Program Manager for the California Office of the Attorney General, Department of Justice, where she developed statewide violence prevention and intervention initiatives. She was also the manager for the DOJ Bureau of Criminal Identification and Information Client Services Program and oversaw special projects. She also held management positions within nonprofit organizations. Today, Lazandra is the principal consultant and CEO of El Michelle Development Group, where she helps nonprofit leaders and their teams make their vision and mission fundable through one-on-one consulting, coaching, and training. Go ahead and light up the chat and let's welcome our special guest today, Lazandra Dial.
So good morning, everyone. I have to start with one correction. It's Lazandra.
Lazandra.
Yes, it's a hard name. I get it. And I tell folks, think lasagna, just don't say lasagna. Think lasagna and then it's Lazandra. So that's a way for folks to remember my name. So again, thank you. I'm so honored and excited to be before you this morning to share my background and expertise in partnering with workforce development boards. You know, I see some of my colleagues, hi Sal, and probably some other folks that I know. So we already have some experts that are in the room that can share or be able to share later, and they probably did in the breakouts around the successful partnerships. And though some of you may be partnered with workforce boards right now and can share, and then there's others that might be new information. So as we go through the presentation, something might sound new, so it may be a refresher, but we're all experts as Amanda shared, and so we'll have opportunity later to talk about some of your partnerships. So thank you for having me here.
Welcome, welcome. Now, let's get started. Thank you so much. Let's start with, what is a workforce board?
Yeah,
that's the question, $1 million question there.
Yeah, and so we're going to present to you a high-level video produced by the National Association of Workforce Development Boards that gives you a 10,000 foot view of what it is a workforce development board. So we're going to start there this morning.
What is a workforce development board? A workforce development board is a formal group of community leaders serving a city, a county, or a region that identifies the needs of the local job market, oversees one-stop career centers, and works to coordinate and align workforce development initiatives in their area. Workforce development boards with membership from business, local elected officials, labor, economic development, educators, and community leaders foster high-growth career opportunities to meet the needs of their regional economy. This system exists to help businesses find qualified workers to meet their present and future workforce needs and help workers acquire skills for employment opportunities. A workforce development board is the link between a region's workforce talent and its employer skill needs. They convene industry and their workforce and education partners in real time to impact the skilling and reskilling of America's workforce and put people back to work in career pathways that provide self-sufficiency. Together, this diverse group of leaders helps their community target recruitment opportunities, identify labor market trends, partner on economic development investments, and create resources to benefit all members of the community. Every workforce development board has a plan that establishes funding priorities for their area focused on a broad range of worker issues that consider wages, job mobility, access, and equity. By analyzing data and working with local businesses, workforce boards understand what skills are most in demand and foster the necessary training and credential programs for their region. Workforce boards also use outcome data to advise employers, policymakers, and communities about what approaches are successful. So without your local workforce development boards, local businesses, educational institutions, and other community stakeholders would not have a strong voice to represent the unique workforce needs of your community. So what is a workforce development board? It is a key link to your community's future.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think it's important for us to get that kind of high level view of the workforce development system that is throughout our nation. And as you listen to it, and I should have said this before, just to look for like keywords and things that you heard, things like formal group of leaders, you heard economic development, you heard business, you heard community leaders, you heard education. That you heard that it serves specific areas, whether that's a city, that can be a county or region. It helps employers find talent for future and current workforce needs, but also helps workers acquire the skills they need for those employment opportunities. Partnering, you heard link, you heard that a lot. Create resources and oversee the one-stop career center, which the national name for is America's Job Center. And here in California, it's America's Job Center of California, or AJCC. And I'm sure many of you are aware of that. And some of you are probably AJCCs. One of the things that it didn't share was the legislation that created the workforce development system, which I'm sure you're all aware of because you're in this you're in this environment, is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So that's our foundation. It's the foundation. It's why workforce boards exist. And it's kind of the foundational funding for for all of the workforce boards at various degrees. So some get a lot of money. That's relative, right? And some get less. But I really wanted to start off kind of with that view and then talk about, what does that look like here in California? So as I retired 7 months ago, 7 months on the 1st, and I thought there was 49 workforce boards, and then I was reading 45. So I know there's some state folks here that can correct the number. So I know there's between 45 and 49 workforce boards in the state of California. And one of the things I wanted to do, and I think is important that we sometimes lose sight of, is there's a distinction between workforce board members and workforce board staff. So in the city of Oakland, we had 19 members. The workforce board is business led. So 51% of your members have to be business. And so it's a pretty big board. That's 19 folks. You have businesses, you have education, you have labor seats, you have some mandated partner seats. So it's a pretty big board. And then you have staff to the board, which will vary in size. And so some of those conversations and folks that you're trying to reach, I think one of the questions is, we're calling, how do we reach people? Then you have staff to the board, and they may be situated in a city government, it could be county government, it could be a nonprofit. So it looks really different. And so as we go through, the presentation or the interview discussion, I'll talk about, really getting to know your workforce board in your local area so you can understand how they are situated. Is it a nonprofit? I believe most of them are in government, but I do know that there's some that are part of a nonprofit. The other thing is there's a chief elected official. So, the workforce board staff, they're responsible for the day-to-day operations, the bylaws, and making sure that the WIOA and the things that are identified in the plan as the presentation alluded to are implemented. But they also do that alongside, there's a chief elected official. So you want to know who that is in your local area. In the city of Oakland, it's the mayor. Other places, it might be a board of supervisor or a council member. So just understanding what it looks like in your local area. The other thing is I really want to talk about this. As you listen to the video, there's really 5 key roles that workforce boards play. And this is straight from the state workforce board website. So, you can go there and look it up, but it really gives you a kind of a bullet point of what their role is. And then as you're thinking about partnering, kind of see where you fit in or the partnership that you might want to put together. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some examples of partnerships, kind of where that fits in. And as I give examples, I'll show you where that role is. So there's 5 key roles. The first is convener, and that's bringing together business and labor and education and economic development to focus on these critical conversations in your region. So you'll see workforce boards playing that role of bringing all those entities together to have these critical conversations and make sure that the right folks are in the room for the conversation. Workforce analysts, so that's developing, disseminating, and understanding the labor market, the current labor market, and economic information and trends. So many of the workforce boards do things like asset mapping, and you'll find often on their websites or even in their local plans, and we're going to talk a little bit about local plan and regional plans, where that information is readily available to you. But when you are partnering, you're thinking about partnering, maybe your partnership is you really just need labor market information from them. They are the go-to. That's where you're going to go to for that information about the local economy. They're broker. So one of the questions I believe was, we're not funded by them. Why should we? Do we not? I don't think it said why should we, but why? Why would we let them know? Because they broker a lot of conversations. So they are the connector. And so that you may want to leverage their relationships to have these critical conversations. Maybe you need to talk to someone at a community college. They can help broker that conversation, but they actually need to know what's going on with you to be able to do that. So it's important that there's some type of awareness about what your workforce services, projects, and things that you're doing in your area. Community voice, advocating for the importance of workforce policy, providing perspective about the needs of skilled workers. I think this is a critical role for workforce boards. When I say workforce board, I'm talking staff of the workforce board that sit on multiple tables. Maybe it's an industry sector partnership, but they sit on a lot of tables because they have they're that hub, they're that link that the video talks about. It's a very unique situation to be in, to have all those partners. They also have mandated partners. When we talk about partnerships, workforce boards are mandated to also have partners. So they have all these links and connections with so many different entities that may serve the population that you are serving. And so they sit as that community voice. They know the labor market information. They know career pathways. And so they're sitting at the table as a thought partner. And then finally, capacity building. It's enhancing the region's ability to meet the workforce needs of local employers. They are responsible for keeping tab of a training provider. You know who the training providers, maybe there's the booming tech industry in your area. They are where the businesses, the talent, that's the training providers, the career centers or workforce services providers in that area, and help build the capacity in their local region by making sure that there's quality services to serve the folks that you all serve every day.
Thank you so much. I love the way you explained what a workforce development board is, gave us points to remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you very much. Now, we know all that now. Here's the $1 million question, or $2 million question. How do we engage with our local workforce development boards? How do we partner with them? How do we engage? And why should we partner with them? Can you share a little bit from your perspective about that?
Sure. The first thing I'll say is I want you to think of research and kind of doing your homework as an act of engagement. So before you even approach the Workforce Development Board, is really, as I mentioned earlier, getting to know them and what they're doing. So, I always encourage folks to go to the Workforce Board meetings. It's a place that you're going to really find out what they're actually working on right now. It is probably the only place that you're going to see staff and board together. And it's a place where you'll have a voice. You are, it's Brown Act, it's a public meeting. If it's something that's not agendized, you have a right during the public forum to talk about something that's not on the agenda. So that could be just introducing yourself and talking about your project. I also ask you in that situation is to really look at, looked at the local plan, understanding, what's involved, what is the strategic direction of your local workforce board right now, and seeing what you do, what your organization does, your initiatives, your projects aligns with that. So as you're having this conversation, you're looking for those points of synergy. And one of the things I failed to mention when I was talking about the workforce boards, so I'll go back to that when I talked about how many there are, and hopefully someone corrected me, the number in the chat, I can't see it right now, that some time ago, the state, it was the state workforce board, divided the state into regional planning units. So you have your local workforce board, and then you have these regional planning units that are made up of workforce boards. Now, how many is in your area? That's part of your research to find out how many are in your area. So you have your regional planning units that are also responsible for doing a plan. So it's called our regional plan. So on the website, various websites, I'm pretty certain, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they're all on the state website. If they're not, you can still, by going to your local meeting, you can find out what region you're in, what region represents the area that you work in. So you have regional plans, you have your local plan. And so there's a lot of information there that gives you an idea of what the workforce board is working on. And you're looking for places of where you align with that. Now, I'm not saying that you can't introduce anything new, because we all had a new in 2020. We did not plan for a pandemic. So with any plan that you do, if it's a 4-year plan, obviously things are going to happen in between. So it doesn't mean that you don't introduce something new, but it should be somewhere aligned. I mean, most of what plans are pretty broad, so that there's probably somewhere that you link. So you want to have some conversations with maybe you schedule an appointment with the executive director. You schedule an appointment to meet with some of the staff of the board. They have workforce analysts or someone who handles the training. Different, you'll learn that by doing the research about who you should be talking to as you partner. And then you want to know why do you want to partner? Be clear about the reason you want to partner. Do you want to partner for funding? And if so, what's the funding and to what end? Like, what do you want to do with that? Do you need a support letter? Is it just, maybe you have a solicitation that requires you to partner with the workforce board. So you want to define that. Is it just a thought partner? You need them. And I keep saying just, and I don't say just to minimize. I think that's just one of the things I say all the time, but you might need a thought partner. You might have an initiative or something that you're working in your community, and you want that community voice that I talked about. You want that person who has the workforce analyst. They know what's happening, and you want them sitting at your table. You want them to do a presentation. Maybe you need labor market information. Maybe you just want to make sure you're aligned. Maybe you're new or you're not, or some things you're thinking about, and you want to make sure you're in alignment. So partnerships look really different, right? And so at this point, I wanted to highlight it's the Alameda County Workforce Development Board. I don't know if we can pull it up. They actually have a process. Now, I'm not saying if this workforce board's like, we never got to a formal process, but I think it's a great idea of an outline of things you might want to think about before you approach a workforce development board regarding a partnership. So they have a workforce partnership questionnaire. You can see here, I'm going to go through it really quickly and maybe we can provide the link later and they can go back and get it. So there's a distinction. Yes, we welcome partnerships. Workforce boards welcome partnerships. We have mandated partners. We know that being this link in the middle, we know we can't do this work alone, but we have all various partners. So whether it's a letter of support or if it's a partnership with a particular project or grant opportunity. So they want you to kind of have that distinction. Also, of course, your name and things like that. If you can go down. What is the nature of your request? I believe this is a drop down that'll show letter of support, partnership, but if it's something else. So it may be something that's not clear cut, but just for you, as you're thinking about your partnerships, this is an outline that you can use to think about before you approach. What is your organization's mission, vision, goals, objectives? We really want to understand, what do? You might be an organization that we're not familiar with. And I say we as if I've still worked there, but I'm still very connected to the workforce system. So you'll hear me say we, even though I'm not the we that still works there. And then describe your project or grant of interest. Is this, what's your strategy, your partnership, your concept, your design? Is it an alignment with the workforce board's priority, mission, and vision, which you're going to get from the local plan? And you can even use this if you're thinking about, I believe one of the questions was approaching multiple workforce boards, right? And if that individual finds that particular workforce they're wanting to approach multiple and they're in a regional kind of planning unit, then it's reaching out about and understanding how your project then aligns with the regional. So but this is, again, the research and the homework that is as your active engagement to kind of figure out where all these things fit. It's best to have all this stuff, know these things and have it kind of outlined. I won't say you have to have it written. I do know it helps. And Sal, being a former director, I don't know how you did it, but it really helped sometimes when someone called or they had it like something written that I can respond to. And so when I'm talking to them, we're talking about the thing because they've already sent me something rather than the conversation being the thing, if that makes sense. Like having something that we get ahead of time that I can respond to really helps. It's like having an agenda, you know what the discussion is going to be about. And so understanding the role that you want the workforce board to play, as I talked about, really understanding the why do you want to partner? So they're clear on that. And for this one, they also asked for the numbers, percentage, how many clients want to be served in that local area, understanding that, again, the foundational funding for, workforce development boards is WIOA. And, each local area gets a specific amount of funding. Oftentimes the regional planning unit has funding. So, although they may only serve, a certain area, they may have other funding streams that allows them to serve other areas. So I would, this is the way they have it written. I don't know if, may or may not need that depending on the type of partnership, but I think this is a great starting point for you to guide to begin to have a discussions of things that you can think about that I believe would help anyone you spoke to in workforce development get an idea of what your project is, okay? And then was there like who to go to? Did you ask that? Like who do you go to? And
so how do we engage? Why do we partner? Go ahead and add who do we go to, please.
Well, I want to say
because that's critical, right?
Yeah, and it really depends. And I'll go back to the research part, is really understanding and getting to know and understanding who the team is. If you can find that out by going to the meetings or even the website sometimes, because I know the City of Oakland website probably doesn't even have me listed, or didn't have me listed. But to get an understanding of who does what, so it really kind of depends on what the request is, and that's going to vary. So I really can't say, oh, you should go to the executive director. Anytime you go to the executive director, depending on what it is, it may go down to another department or another workforce staff. It may not be something he or she or they can handle or should be handling, right? So if it's say it's money, maybe you're a training provider and you want to, be on the, I don't want to go into a rabbit hole and talk about some specific stuff, but the ETPL, the eligible training provider list. And I don't want to get into a discussion about that, but maybe you want to be a training provider. And so that conversation may bypass the executive director, but it's really going to depend of how that workforce board organizationally handles their flow, right? And so the best way to understand that is you get a sense of, oh, you go to the meeting, oh, this person's the business services person. Maybe I should go to them. Sometimes if it's executive director to executive director may feel they want to talk to another executive director because it's something, maybe a system or something, that's going to change kind of a high level, maybe the high level, the initial conversation can happen at the executive director. So it's really going to depend. That's a hard one. Depends. Why partner? And I say this, and I say it in different ways, but I'm going to say it this way today. Workforce boards, and I think maybe I speak for all of them, don't have deep pockets. They don't have deep pockets, but they have deep connections. As you heard in the video, as I've been sharing, all the connections that they have, it behooves you to leverage those relationships. So that's why you want to partner. You want to get to know who all the players are. They know the players. It's a very unique position, as I talk about, and a dynamic. I love workforce development because it's such a dynamic field, because there's so many components of workforce development. So you want them to understand, we have mandated partners, social services, child support services, veteran programs, senior programs, community colleges. Like, these are our partners. You may need to leverage. We may need to help broker a conversation. We may need to convene, and you need to be a part of it. So be a part of that convening. So this is opportunity for you to leverage the connections.
Great. Thank you for that depth. I'm looking at the chat real quick, see if there's any questions, and seeing none for our last 9 minutes or so. You talked about the local plan. Can you just give us maybe give us a quick overview or why and how. How do we even apply the local plan to our partnership with the Workforce Development Board? How would we do that?
Yeah, so the local plan, again, we talked about WIOA and it's legislatively mandated. It's a 4-year plan. It's basically the strategic direction of the local area. And understand that the local plan ties into the state plan. So the state is responsible for submitting a plan to the Department of Labor. Once that plan is approved, then there's things that the local areas have to do to make this become a reality, right? So each local area would do a local plan. So it's basically just like any other strategic plan. And then the regional plan is similar. And the regional plan, however, often looks more at the local economy and how those 3-4, like in city of Oakland or the East Bay regional planning unit, it was 4 workforce boards, is how will the 4 workforce boards together meet the regional economy needs. And so it's an opportunity for you to see what's happening in your local area and then look at what you do. And where do you fit in? As I shared earlier, like what role do you play? Are you a training provider? Are you a business? Are you a workforce services provider? What role do you play in helping to meet the needs of the local, the local board, or even the region, or even the state plan? Because everything should be in alignment. And you'll see that alignment if you can even go look at the state plan to get an idea of like, what is the state saying we should do? And if you feel like maybe something is not identified in the local plan that you see in the state plan, you can maybe ask, what is, and just understand that the local plan is, there's a planning meeting. So there's opportunities for you to come talk about what you're doing and how you fit in. And it's the same thing as, it's usually Brown Act. You can come, you can participate. So make sure, and that's another thing I missed earlier, but that's another.
Did you freeze, or is that just on my end?
Nope, it's frozen.
Folks, it is frozen. So I saw we had a question. Hopefully, Lazandra, are you able to hear us? I believe our guest speaker is frozen. And we saw your question, Mary. And that's specific to Lazandra. So we're going to, this is a perfect example of why I'm on 2 devices, folks. You may see Angela Gardner and you see WDS. This is exactly why I don't care how long we've been on this virtual world, I don't trust it. All right, and it looks like, Jovan, you're laughing, So Oscar and Amanda, it looks like Lazandra has logged off and will probably rejoin.
Yeah. I'm wondering, I'll keep an eye out for Lazandra, but Mary, is this something you want to speak on briefly, or was it a question? I wasn't quite clear there if that was a question or you had some insights you wanted to briefly share.
And feel free to unmute yourself, Mary.
Hello?
There you are.
Oh, there I am. Okay. I'm not really sure. I know we only have a couple minutes, so I'm going to try to figure out what I was hoping to articulate. We have worked with the AJCCs for a long time, and there have been some great wins. There have been some things that are quite difficult, and I'd really hope to articulate that, but we don't have time. I guess one thing is, and I know this is way out of the control of anybody on this call, but the DOL required MOUs with anybody who partners with the AJCCs. And that really ticked me off because, we rent space there, we work with them, we have brought grants, several DOL grants to the AJCCs, and we still have, and like I said, we still have to do some kind of give back. And I just thought that was very short-sighted of DOL, but that's just a comment that if you get more intimately involved, that is an expectation. But I guess maybe what I would like to know is, where would one go to be able to have some input to the AJCCs, maybe at the state level, about things that I would really like to kind of talk about, because I feel like it's at a level that's more than the local board. So maybe that's my question.
Lazandra's back. Lazandra, did you hear that question?
Sure, I think I heard all of it. You know, the state workforce board also has meetings, right? There's opportunity to engage there, and find out who the person is that you need to talk to, because we know that, you know, some of the state agencies, they're huge, right? You read off my resume, you saw all the different places I worked and all these different departments. And because you're talking about a system change, it sounds like, right? How do you change the system? And but also understand now, we, and I'm still saying we, are under WIOA. So it could be that some of the changes may or may not be possible, may not be allowable under the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, because that's the governing legislation for workforce boards and America's Job Centers.
Right, right.
But it's an opportunity to get your voice heard about some of the changes, and maybe someone at the state can also maybe take the question, because they probably are better situated to answer in terms of who Mary would talk to or should talk to.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I think it is maybe more of a sensibility. For example, we have a very strong relationship with the South Bay WIB here in LA County, and the director of the One Stop articulates it very well, which is about they're generalists and they need specialists. In our case, it's reentry. So I really appreciate that. And the other thing is about registrants, which people call mostly sex offenders. But I've heard some of the AJCCs talk in a way that is very, very negative about registrants. So, and I understand, you know, that impulse, but trying to maybe be able to, you know, educate, if I may say that, to raise that awareness. So I'm thinking more, I guess, rather than changing the policies or anything, but just that sensitivity to some of those issues.
Yeah, you know, maybe that is something that's also brought up at the local area to be discussed. And maybe, I don't know if the regions should have meetings. I don't know, oftentimes they're not public meetings, but that can be something that may be brought up at the region, and maybe this goes all the way up. One of the projects I was actually going to mention that we worked on and funding was available from the state is what they call the Prison to Employment Project. And I hope with that there was some sensibilities, but I'm hearing that's, you know, not always the case, because we're dealing with individuals that probably need some more education or guidance around, you know, we don't even say reentry, right? We say returning citizens and things like that. And how do we have that conversation?
Thank you so much. And thank you,
welcome.
Mary. I don't know if I see any other questions, and we're going to just give ourselves an extra minute or two on this. And it would be great if you would share, Lazandra, a little bit about just the boards themselves. And there's been so much transition, i.e. your retirement. I don't know who told you could do that at your young age, right? I'm joking. kind of. With all the transition, with all the transition, and especially the last few years, will you close us out and just take a minute or so and really just share with us about the people on the Workforce Development Board staff and the people factor? Do you mind just taking a minute or so and doing that?
Sure, I appreciate that. You know, I can speak for myself. I'll speak from my personal experience, and I know that there's other workforce folks here. The people that do the work, they're passionate about the work. They're there because they want to be there. They're there because they want to serve. And we're human. And so we all were dealt a blow from 2020 to now. And so many folks are, you know, right now a part of that great resignation, and that's kind of me, that decided to readjust my life. But even prior to that, I have four of us. And we're responsible for implementing, career pathways and sector partnerships and all of these things with 4 people. And so we're dealing with the same thing everyone else is dealing with. Folks in government are, just like everyone else. We're human, we're dealing with the same type of issues. And sometimes we're understaffed, overworked, stressed, all the things that everyone else presents with. And so, I remember when the pandemic hit, and I had just been promoted, like, great, thank you. Get the promotion a month before there's a pandemic, and I'm trying to figure out and navigate. And my word that I use and with my team is grace. Like, grant each other grace, because we all are dealing with, every person on this planet has dealt with or something impact them some kind of form of fashion by the pandemic, or even prior to that. So I would say, if you're having trouble reaching someone, try again, reach back out, give them some time, give them a date. It helps if you have an information like we showed earlier that the Alameda County uses. Anything that you can help navigate, maybe understanding the role of the workforce board. Maybe you don't need to actually partner with the workforce board. Maybe it's the AJCC. Maybe that's the role. And so kind of understanding that, but it was challenging, grateful that we're all still here. And just grace. I mean, that's just my word of the day, is granting folks grace, and reach back out, because I literally would get so many emails. Sometimes they would just fall. I would see it and then, gosh, forgot. So I always say, reach back out to that person, and, grant them grace as we grant you the same grace. So.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for that. And it's a very timely reminder right now. Well, I'm looking at the chat. Am I missing any questions from anyone? Oscar, Amanda? No? Okay. All right. Anything else? Did I forget anything, Oscar, Amanda? All right. Thank you so much, Lazandra. Thank you for all your wisdom and your sharing this morning with this very special group of folks that do great work, as you're well familiar with. Thank you. Oscar?
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you, Lazandra. Thank you, Angela. I love the word grace. It's a word that I think about and use all the time, both for others and for ourselves. And part of that is a little bit of self-care. So we're going to take a break, 5 minutes to stretch, to use the restroom, to grab some tea, to check your email, whatever you need to do. And then we're going to come back at, let's say, 11:10 or 11:11. Let's say 11:11. We'll give ourselves a good 5 minutes and do just a quick reflection and debriefing. What did we hear? What questions do we have? What stood out? And just another chance to meet each other. If you want to be in a group that's not with all of your teammates from your organization, I know Transcan Work and Friends Outside have multiple folks here, and some of you others probably do as well. Put the name of your organization in your name so that I can assign you to different rooms. Otherwise, you can always come back and we'll do that manually. I'm going to start creating the rooms right now while you take a break, and I'll